So you've got a business idea, but where do you actually set up shop? On a busy street or somewhere in the giant world of the internet? The biggest question that comes up is usually about money. So which one is really cheaper, a physical store or an online one? Let's break it all down. Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll get clear on what we mean by these two types of shops. Then, we're going to dig into the costs for a real physical store, and after that, the costs for an online one. Then, we'll put them side by side and figure it out. And we'll wrap up with how you can make the smartest choice for whatever you're planning. Before we dive into all the numbers, just think about it for a second. Where do you like to shop? Are you the kind of person who loves walking into a store, browsing around, actually feeling the products? Or are you more of a one click from the couch kind of shopper? How you shop is a great way to start thinking like a seller.
Okay, perfect. Now that we're in that customer mindset, let's make sure we're on the same page. To really compare the costs, we need to be crystal clear on what we mean when we say an online shop versus a real shop.
On the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? One is on your computer and the other is out on the street. One exists in the digital world, you can get to it from anywhere, while the other is a real place you have to walk into. But the impact of that difference is massive, so let's get a little more specific. So first up, we have the e-commerce shop. Now, e-commerce might sound a little technical, but all it means is electronic commerce. This is your digital storefront. It's open 24/7, and your customers can visit it anytime on their phone or their computer. And on the other hand, you've got the traditional or brick and mortar shop. This is that physical store you can see on the street where you can actually talk to people face to face. You'll often hear it called an offline shop, and it's the way business has been done for, well, centuries. All right, so we've got our definitions down. Now it's time to talk about the money. Let's start with a classic model. What does it actually cost to open and run a physical brick and mortar store? Well, a physical shop has some pretty big, tangible costs. You've got the monthly rent for your space, which is a huge fixed expense. Then you've got your utilities, electricity, water. You're gonna have to pay salaries for the people working there. And of course, you still need to buy all your products, your stock, to actually put on the shelves. And let's be honest, out of all those things, rent is almost always the giant in the room. Getting a great location with lots of people walking by can make a huge difference for sales, but wow, it comes with a seriously hefty price tag that you have to pay every single month. So that's the brick and mortar world. Now let's totally switch gears. What does the budget look like when your entire shop is digital? For an online shop, the list of expenses looks pretty different. Instead of paying for rent on a building, you have a website fee. You can think of it like a small digital rent. Instead of paying staff to greet people, you're spending money on online ads to bring customers to you. Then you've got delivery costs to actually send your products to people. And just like the real store, you still have to buy your stock. Okay, so we've laid out the costs for both. Now for the main event. Which one is actually cheaper? Let's put them right next to each other and see what jumps out. When you see it like this, the trade-offs are super clear. For a real shop, you have these big fixed costs like rent and salaries. For an online shop, those get replaced by things like advertising and delivery. And look, things like electricity bills and decorating the store, they just don't exist online. You're basically trading a physical location for digital reach. So what's the verdict? Well, in almost every case, an online shop is going to be cheaper to start up. And the reason is really simple. You get to skip the single biggest expense of a traditional business, that massive cost of renting a physical space. Knowing which one is cheaper is a huge piece of the puzzle. But that leads us to our last section, making your smart business choice. Because cheaper doesn't always mean better. The really important question is, what's the best choice for you? Here are 3 simple things to think about. First, your product. Is it something that's easy to ship, or does it really need to be seen in person? Second, your customer. Where do they already hang out and spend their money? Are they always online, or do they like the traditional shopping experience? And finally, based on that, you can choose. Maybe you start small and lean online, or maybe you go all in on that perfect location on the street. If you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this simple idea. The best shop is the one that serves your customer best. The cheapest option for you isn't always the right one for them, and at the end of the day, they're the ones that matter. So there you have it. We've gone through the costs, we've looked at the big questions you need to ask yourself. You're now ready to really weigh your options. So the only question left is, what kind of shop are you going to build?